Sup witches! Today we're going to be talking about my favorite Serviad boy, Keelthine, and the case of the Vanishing Horse. So the case of the Vanishing Horse is a name to a trope that my good friend Stephen Partridge gave a name to, and I will, if I can do my editing right and remember which way to point, up in the eye you can click and go check out his video covering what the trope is, but today we're going to talk about some of the ways that I personally solve this problem in my work, and some ways that you can think about solving it in yours. So there are two main things I want to talk about in this video. The first thing is talking about giving animals personalities, and the second thing is dealing with a big animal in a setting. So to start off, we want to talk about giving animals big personalities, and for a lot of this we're going to be talking about Keelthine. And Keelthine is one of the main trio in my series. He's a big boy. He's a hart, which is a domesticated type of cervidae, I think that's how you say it. He's a big domesticated deer. So even though Keelthine has been domesticated, he's a very wild creature. He has a very big personality. He attacks anyone who insults what he is and calls him anything less than a hart. He's generally a pompous dick who runs off on his own whenever he feels like it. And so establishing all of that helps me deal with the second problem, but it also gives him a personality that holds a candle to the other characters. Now, the difficulty with writing animal characters in fiction is that unless the animal speaks, it's very hard to write a mute character because it's hard for us sometimes to convey language without words. And there are easy ways to get around this for creatures that have hands, because then you could write in a fictional version of sign language and then they can talk through their hands, and that can get around it for more sentient creatures. For creatures that can't quite be sentient, you can have one of your companions who can completely speak to an animal or understand them on a deeper level, something like Isun and Amaterasu in the Okami game, or like Hiccup and Toothless in How to Train Your Dragon. But even with being able to understand the creature in your fiction, like having someone who can understand them, they should still have a personality, because real animals have loads of personalities. If you talk to any animal owner, or if you've had multiple pets at a time, you can tell when animals have wildly different personalities from each other. For instance, Bugbear, talking about my two dogs now, Bugbear is incredibly smart, but she's incredibly treat driven. And that means that she is really quick to learning tricks. She's highly motivated by the treats. And so if we offer her a reward for learning a trick, she learns it in like a day. She's super smart in that regard. Ranger, on the other hand, Ranger's really smart and she loves like making friends. She's verbally oriented for rewards. Giving her treats, she'll just gorge herself. But if you praise her a lot, she's super smart and will learn a trick in about a week. She's a puppy. She's still learning. She's not dumb. But then we talk about the personalities they have between them. Bugbear is super loud and yells at people, but when someone comes up to pet her, she's like super scared and shy. Ranger will like just run at you and pee when she gets scared, but she'll like still love seeing you. Totally different personalities, same size dogs, they look almost identical, totally different entities. Real animals have personalities, and it's not like you have to give them a load of personality traits. I have personality traits for each of my dogs that really summarize them. Bugbear barks bigger than her bite, so she's outgoingly aggressive but inwardly really shy. She's really smart with her reward-driven scale. Ranger is gonna do something even if it kills her, and she loves telling people tell her that she's a good girl. Sums up their personalities, 2 traits, and my animals have character. But another easy way to do it in writing is to give them written dialogue and then take it out. Keelthine talks in the... Actually, it's better just to give an example. Keelthine would only speak of Keelthine's self in the most royal of language, because Keelthine is the most magnanimous. I can't keep up with this. Most magnanimous and wondrous creature that walks on the speaker's earth. Keelthine's got a big head. He talks like he's got a big head. And even though that dialogue doesn't show up anywhere in my book series, that's the kind of dialogue that I know is going in his head. So if you can establish that personality, how they would talk, and take it out, leave behind the expressions of the lifted head, the glares at anything that is beneath them, the nonchalant passing off of someone who they really care about, but they must preserve this arrogant image that they have of themselves. Keelthine has a load of personality, doesn't need to speak a word. You absolutely understand when you've irritated him, he might try to kill you. That said, how do you deal with keeping up with your animal? You've given them a personality, so now you want characters to be invested in them. You have a problem because they don't really fit in the narrative. That's totally fair. Keelthine is a giant hart. He's bigger than probably a Shire horse or a Percheon. He's massive, and he wouldn't really fit in a big city. It does not make much sense to bring him in there. However, you can't just leave the reader without an understanding of what happen. For instance, like I established, Keelthine may be a domesticated type of Cerviade. He is also super wild. He does not want it to be domesticated. He refuses to wear a saddle. About that life. So it's totally reasonable to understand that Keelthine, who prefers not to be domesticated, would prefer to be out in the woods with other deer. When Diana and Kanza have to go into cities, they just kind of leave him out in the woods because that makes the most sense for a wildish deer. Finally, Keelthine is a summonable creature. All the hearts are like soul-bound to one Hanthier in my setting. So Kanza can choose to summon Keelthine, and Keelthine can choose to answer that summoning. The fact that Keelthine can choose not to do it means also that not only can Keelthine be teleported to Kanza, but Keelthine can teleport himself. Goes into the other feature that I get Keelthine, but Keelthine can teleport. Having a teleporting creature is super useful because then you have a magical means in your fantasy setting why your animal might be somewhere else. If you have like a home base that has a stable that you can rent your horses out for free, teleport them back to the stable or let them teleport back to the stable and then summon them again when you need them. Magic and animals. I already talked about this. Magic and animals is a great plot device, and it's also the entire premise of Pokemon, so like, I already like this principle of giving magic to animals. If you don't want a plot device reason, then you need to remember things like where are you going to keep the animal? Can they be out in the wild on their own and you can just like come back and find them at an outside camp? Characters choose to camp with so that you can keep your animals at hand. Make sure that they have extra money so that they can stable them when they stay at inns. The kinds of questions you need to be asking, particularly if your characters are going to be on a budget and if that's something you want to worry about, then like remember where you're going to keep it. Smaller animals are a little bit easier because you could probably pull something that like everyone's done with a pet in a hotel where you sneak it into a suitcase and get in and then make sure that all is quiet. To be fair, in a lot of fantasy settings, I don't know that they would mind as much considering that like sanitary reasons you don't want animals. Usually the reason why hotels don't want them because it makes it harder to clean, and I don't think in a medieval setting they would care as much. It makes smaller animals like cats and dogs and portable creatures a little bit easier to manage. But once you get to a horse, you do need to start thinking about paying extra for your critter. You also need to think about feeding, and in doing that, you're going to have to research on what kind of things animals eat. And so if you have like chickens, parrots, birds, then you're going to have to probably be pretty easy on skipping the feeding because as long as you let them out in a grassy area, they're going to find bugs and be pretty okay. As long as you're going to make sure you feed them like small dogs eat about a cup of food a day. Your animals are going to like multiply that by significant amounts as you get bigger. And then you get to horses, which while they can graze, they still have supplementary meals of like a couple pounds of food a day, forms of hay and oats and other things. And so it's things that you gotta like research and make sure that you understand before you're just like, yeah, they'll be fine in the woods. And while probably if you had an animal who used to being in the wild, they probably could feed on their own, but you're also gonna want some additional feed to like supplement it, or that animal is gonna be unhealthy. Particularly for animals that have been domesticated, this is something really important you're gonna have to think about. The thing is, if you can't bring them into like a dungeon, because why would a horse go into a cave system underneath the mountains? To come up with a reason of like, well, where do they go? You could have some kind of magical means drawing them out. Again, Lord of the Rings reference, Bill got drawn back to Tom Bombadil. I would establish that the animal is super strong and loyal, and so that they will stay there and they will fight off anything that comes towards them and like hold their ground, and that could be a risk of coming out of like, my animal okay? On the other hand, you could have your animal be an absolute coward, and if they can't go in with you and something happens, they're gone and you may never see that animal again, and that's another risk that your characters may have to think about. Well, like, we leave them alone, then we may not have a horse when we come back out. All this to say is that animals can make super fun characters, and it can be a little bit daunting to write a character without any spoken words, but at the same time, there are people who don't speak out, and we need to write more of them, but they're totally viable characters, so an animal can be a totally viable character. And I don't want to compare people to animals, but like, in terms of writing techniques, only in terms of writing techniques can we make this comparison. Keeping up with them is just remembering the practicality of like having an animal. And if you dedicate yourself usually to writing an animal and like writing them with a personality, it tends that you usually will remember them. Makes things easier. A big important decision could be like whether or not the animal matters. So an animal in your story, it doesn't have to matter. As you establish that like renting a horse to go from point A to point B, and then when I get there, I'm selling the horse back. I think Patrick Rothfuss did in the Kingkiller Chronicles series, where we would buy a horse and then get rid of the horse because we didn't need the horse as a plot thread. Firstly, you could have a blanket term that can like give away the nonsense of how many horses you have with something like Geralt's kinship with Roach, and Roach is just whatever he names his horse. Horses may be changing, and this could be an inside joke between you and the reader. As far as the character's concerned, it's all the same horse because they have no idea how to take care of a horse properly. I'm making a 5e variant rule that are like would let animals personalities and like give you bonuses for bonding with them, because I think once you start giving personality to animals, you get a little bit more dedicated in keeping up with them. That's for all today. Thank y'all so much for watching. I am gonna be Friday, and we're gonna be going back to like the old upload schedule with just a video on Friday for now. You should go pick up a copy of Wordwalker's Stolen Secret. It's available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble for hardback and ebook. It's available for paperback by the end of next month, and I'm currently waiting on proof copies of that to make sure that everything is on the up and up. All that said, I'll see you later. Bye.